July 9th, 1931. A man named Albert Johnson walks into the small town of Fort McPherson in the Northwest Territories to buy trapping supplies. While he's in the shop, a constable for the Northwest Mounted Police named Edgar Millen sees him and starts a small conversation. He doesn't get much information from the man other than the fact that he has a Scandinavian accent, he's not very friendly, and he doesn't seem to be running low on cash. Millen suggested to the man that he buys a trapping license if he wishes to trap in the area, and the two parted ways. Now, people in Fort McPherson loved Edgar Millen because of his sense of humor. He had a kind personality, he was really good at bushcraft, and he had Halo 3 for Xbox 360, as well as his mom said it's cool that we can stay the night if it's cool with your mom. Johnson went off to settle near Rat River. He built his hut in a ditch, as well as he put little rifle holes on each corner of his hut like some sort of satanic industrial glory hole. Now, Johnson immediately set off to go be a trapper, but he learned that trapping's a lot like beaches. The popular areas suck and are overpopulated. So he did what any reasonable person would do, and he started messing with other people's traps. The result of this was the First Nation started complaining that their traps were getting messed with, and the police decided to do something new, and they blamed it on a white guy for once. And they were right. It was him. He was 100% messing with people's traps, thinking that if theirs were not working, that he would catch more. So on the day before Christmas, or the 26th of December, or 28th, most likely the 26th, but on the day before Christmas, not a creature was stirring in the white wasteland, except for Constable Alfred King and Special Constable Joe Bernard, who were hauling ass 97 kilometers to Rat River to confront the man for trapping violations. Ooh, thrilling. When they got there, they saw smoke coming from the chimney, so King approached, but got no response. Eventually, he did look in the little rifle holes and said that he did see Johnson, who immediately covered it in a sack, and they left. They didn't have a search warrant, so there was nothing they could do, so they had to go all the way back to get a search warrant to return 5 days later. So after the 5 days, King returned back with not only a search warrant, but 2 more men, really beefing it up, and he went up to the door and gave a friendly little knock. Now, I do think it's very important to mention that at this point, they were just going there to talk, and worst case scenario, to collect $5. So King knocks on the door, and Johnson returns the friendly hello by shooting through the door and through King's stomach. So King fell to the ground as he watched the scene around him turn into Helen Keller at a carnival shooting gallery. The rest of the Mounties grabbed King and dragged him all the way back to Aklavik, and by the grace of Kurt Russell, somehow, not only with 1931 medicine, but also being in the Northwest Territories, they saved his life. He was okay. I can't imagine that. There's people that slip and die today. So he had shot a man. Most police thought that he was going through a form of isolation madness, which was very common at the time and happened quite a bit, and it usually started with people messing with traps. So he rounded up a posse of 9 men, 42 dogs, and 20 pounds of dynamite to go and try to get him out of his cabin. As they got there, they threw the dynamite onto the roof of the cabin, which collapsed it. While these 9 angry men charged towards Johnson, Johnson started firing back the little bugger with 1 gun in each hand, like a complete badass, like a knockoff Rambo, a Rambino, if you will. This gunfight went on for 15 hours and ended at 4 a.m. with somehow no one getting injured. These fuckers have plot armor thicker than Wilford Brimley's blood. As the men returned back to civilization in retreat, a blizzard came in, delaying their return till January 14th. At this time, more men had joined their posse, including our good friend Edgar Millen. But for some reason, they were surprised to find out that Johnson didn't just hang out in the remains of his cabin, but he left. So it took until the 30th of January for them to finally track him down, where another gunfight ensued. But sadly, this one didn't go very well, as Edgar Millen was shot through the heart and died. Don't make fun of my head. Yes, I know I look like an egg. Now with an RCMP officer's blood on his hand, and not only that, but an RCMP officer that everyone in the community liked, the news went nuts. Everyone started freaking foaming at the mouth. They were ready for it. They wanted that mad trapper's blood. So what did they do? Well, they did what any of us would do, and they called WAP May. Now, if you don't live in Canada or care about World War I history, you probably don't know who Wap May is. Wap May was a flying ace during World War I. He is credited with outmaneuvering the Red Baron, causing the Red Baron to get shot down, as well as he trained a lot of World War II pilots for Canada and the United States. On February 5th, May discovered that Johnson had crossed the Richardson Mountains. He also discovered how it was so hard for them to catch Johnson. I mean, it's a barren wasteland of just white snow. How hard is it to find one living thing in nothingness? Well, what he was doing was he was following caribou so that you couldn't see his tracks. On top of this, the caribou would stamp down the snow so he could move faster than the giant posse of men. But he couldn't outrun an airplane, and that sucked for him. May finally tracked down the Mad Trapper on February 17th. The RCMP cut him off, and as Johnson tried to get away, his own snowshoes, because he was going through deeper snow at the time, stopped him from retreating. Surprise, surprise, another gunfight ensued, where Johnson was shot on a weird angle through his pelvis, which went through a bunch of major vessels and killed him. But that wasn't the only person who got shot. Frickin' King got shot again, but luckily Wap May landed, picked him up, and carried him to safety again, and this time through the magic of 1932 medicine, he survived again. So it's a cool story, but why is it history? Well, at the time, it was the biggest manhunt in Canadian history, and still is to this day. Even though I've been calling him Alfred Johnson this whole time, that's just the name that he gave Millen, and further research into it has found no information about an Alfred Johnson. We have no idea where he came from or when he was born, and most people think that Alfred Johnson was a fake name. To this day, his identity is still unknown, even though we do have his body. But even with that, there's cases like D.B. Cooper and Jack the Ripper, people who are also unknown and got away. So why is the Mad Trapper cool or interesting? Well, it's because what he did. Surviving months in the Northwest Territories now in the wilderness would be borderline impossible. Doing it in the 1930s while being chased by the RCMP, as well as the natives of the area, is impressive beyond all belief. Think about this. It took a flying ace from World War I to finally track him down. A lot of people believe that his crazy response to the fine and the small amount of police originally showing up shows that he must have been a bigger criminal, or other people have pointed out his ability to survive in the wilderness must point to him having special forces training. The sad part is we'll never know. But to me, the interesting thing about the Mad Trapper is not about his life before the chase. It's about his life right before the chase. Being alone in the Northwest Territories in 1931 caused a lot of people to go crazy, but not a lot of people to go this crazy and survive this long. And I would kill to know exactly what it was like, or to sit and talk with him just for a couple minutes before this whole thing happened. What was going through his mind? Why was he so determined that that would be his last stand? Why was a trapping violation worth his life? And that, to me, is what's interesting about this story. Yes, we'll never know the answers, but it's cool to think about. Anyway, like always, there's sources down below, and you can go now.